Welcome to the Why Not Real Estate Podcast, where you will learn top strategies from world-class real estate investors, both large and small. Why not? Tune in and get started today.
A little bit. Let's say you're starting off with as a real estate investor. You've got your first home. It's starting to or your first property is starting to generate some income. If you don't need that income to run your personal household, I would say let's start throwing a bunch of that into this life insurance policy, because like you said, it's that bank account where it's going to earn returns. It's guaranteed not to lose value. Um, and also it's providing you all the other benefits of the life insurance. And then you're building that up, so when it comes time to go after another property, you have a chunk saved for the down payment, plus whatever you can get for your HELOC on the house that you've got. And then you can kind of roll from there.
Hey, what's up, all of my real estate peeps? This is Brian Lucier from the Why Not Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we believe investing in multifamily is the best investment strategy out of all other real estate asset classes, with another episode on the show. Well, today's show has a slight twist to it. Our guest today comes from the finance side of the industry, helping real estate investors grow their portfolios. At the end of the interview, I threw him a curveball question, and we ended up talking about a real estate investment class that I've never encountered before. So be sure to stay tuned to the end of the show to learn more about this international real estate investing opportunity. Our guest on the show today started his career working in behavioral health and then pivoted to the finance industry in 2018. He's worked for some of the bigger names in the finance industry, including Vanguard and Merrill Lynch. He's now working with real estate investors, showing them how insurance can be used as a privatized banking system that has remarkable benefits for investors, especially at the beginning of their careers. Our guest currently resides in New York City, and when he's not assisting investors amass real estate empires, he enjoys camping, exploring the great outdoors, trying and enjoying new restaurants and cuisine. He loves cooking and spending quality time with his wife and his dog. Ladies and gentlemen, all of my real estate peeps, it is my pleasure to introduce to the show today senior broker with Ironhawk Financial Group and soon to be international real estate investor, Mr. Christian Bond. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Brian.
It's my pleasure to have you on. And there's a little bit of a twist on today's show. You offer I'll call it a product, but actually it's a whole technique for funding deals. And I'm going to let you unpack that in just a little bit here. But first, I want to welcome you to coming to the show. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to be here to help real estate investors. And if it's okay with you, we're going to jump right in and I'll get started with the questions.
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay, so typically I'll ask a real estate investor, what did they do before coming to invest in real estate? So I'm going to massage that a little bit. You are in the insurance space. So I'm going to ask, what did you used to do before coming into insurance? And you've got a really cool product, but I don't want to steal your thunder there. What did you used to do before servicing insurance?
So I studied camping in college, and after college, I went and I worked in the wilderness with at-risk youth for a few years. So that was really fun, really rewarding. Like personally, pay is terrible though. So I was like, if I ever want to make money, I gotta come up with something else to do. So I weaseled my way into finance. I've always been attracted to like the stock market and figuring out how all that stuff works. And so that's what led me here. And so yeah, but then I also, who doesn't love real estate? Who doesn't love looking for deals and for great properties? So I'm working into doing that, but my mainly I've been in investing for the past about 6 or 7 years.
Okay, so I'm gonna let our guests know a little bit about this. I've actually been involved with what you're doing, and I don't want to taint it or say the wrong thing. I know it as whole life dividend paying life insurance, and the way it's been taught to me, it's a personal banking system that happens to have a death benefit.
That's a great way of putting it.
So I want to know more about that. Um, let's just jump right into it. Why don't you explain the concept and then unpack how an investor can use this for their own portfolio?
Great. Yeah. So first off, these are life insurance products. So the one that's been popular for a long time, whole life, that pays a dividend, that one's been really popular for, I don't know, like 100 years. And then, but recently, in the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, what's become more popular is the index universal life policies that function very similar to a whole life policy. And the way these work, they're life insurance products. So you pay a premium when you die. I mean, we all die, but when you die, the insurance company will pay you agreed upon amount of money, and that's how it works. Term life works the same way. Now, where term life and IULs and whole life are different is that there's a tax code that's written where if you put extra money into your life insurance policy, the value that you get when you die goes up. So it's called overfunding your policy. So let's say it costs $100 a month for your death benefit. That what you would do is you pay maybe $200 or $300 a month, and then that goes directly into a cash value amount, and then that is invested into the stock market. Well, it depends. I mean, either way, they're investing it into they're investing that cash value amount. In a whole life, they're paying you a dividend, which is usually guaranteed between 4 to 8%. And with an IUL, it's invested on in the index, and those returns can be much higher, but they also can be much lower. But they're guaranteed to never lose money. So you might be wondering, well, how can I do anything with this with life or with real estate? So once you've overfunded this account, you can take out that cash value at any time you want. But what's interesting about that cash value is that you can also borrow against it. And if you borrow against it, you're not taxed. And so now you can use that money to go put in for a down payment, for all these things. And then when you sell the property, you can repay the loan and avoid some of the taxes that way as well. That's why I think that this really comes to be great for real estate investors. They're always trying to find ways to mitigate their tax liability. And so this is one of those ways where they can repay those loans and not have to worry about the tax implication there.
So I've got questions. So you
Great.
mentioned that this is an IUL, which is an Index Universal Life Policy. And
Yes.
this is different from a whole life, as I I only understand the concept of the whole life, so I'm going to ask a lot of questions because I just don't know.
For
Is
sure.
is an IUL a term or a whole life?
So it's index universal, so it's a whole life. You're paid the death benefit no matter what, as long as you're paying those premiums.
Okay. And again, I only have one point of reference, so I'm like a blind man in a dark room trying to figure out an elephant, and I'm hoping to God that this is the trunk. So I'm familiar with the dividend paying. You said it's a different type of return. It could go up, it could go down. There is no guarantee, of course, because all investing has risks. But I will make note that the insurance companies usually have the largest, tallest buildings in the largest cities. So insurance companies do not invest to lose money.
No, no, they have some of the best track records and hedge funds working for that they're investing in to provide these returns. I mean, you have to if you're going to guarantee a return. So, uh, like you were talking about with whole life, those are guaranteed to pay a 4 to, like I said, 8%. And since that's guaranteed, nobody, it's implied that that will never go down. But if you were to take like your traditional IRA or your 401k, that's invested in the stock market, and that goes up and down.
Hmm.
Where the IUL differ or the Index Universal Life differs from a 401k is that it's capped, and so that it will never decrease in value. It'll only go up in value. It's tied to the market, but when the market goes down, your money stays the same value. They have lots of incredible traders and like mechanisms to make sure that they're able to do that. But let's say it's a year where the stock market doesn't go up that year. Well, then your account's going to stay at a zero that year. But we all know that that's a very low probability, and they've been my coworkers, he says it's about a 14.9 return year over year for the last several years. So I haven't found that number myself, but I'm just trusting a coworker. But that's pretty good. That's a pretty solid return, but it is not guaranteed. So if you're a younger investor, I'd really encourage you to take a look at this Index Universal Life. If you're an older investor, you probably want to lean more towards the whole life, so you're getting that guaranteed for whatever percent return.
Okay, so your colleague has indicated 14.9. I'm going to guess maybe it's a range from 12 to 14, something like that. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's a really good number. That's interesting. You mentioned that it's also capped. So how does that work? Is the insurance company like just backing this that it would stay at its last known cash value, or is it the cash value that you put in? How do you get there?
Yeah, so the insurance company backs it up with their own capital, their own investments, and that sort of thing. And what they also do is that they'll put a cap on top of your investment. So let's say the stock market does 30% in a year. Well, you maybe don't do 30%. It's tied to the market, but they're going to take the top 5 or 10% and provide you like with a range of that investment. So it's not as volatile as the stock market, uh, but the returns are a little bit more secured.
So if I'm seeing a 12 to 14, almost 15% return, and the market does crazy, I'm still good because I've gotten my 12 to actually if it did that good, I'd be at the 14.9 or wherever it's capped. And I know
Yeah.
that going in because we're going to talk all about this and you're going to explain that to your client that you've got a bottom end that you won't go under and you've got a cap if it's a really good year. So if it's a really good year, I know I'm making money. So I shouldn't be looking at the gap and the gain on that one. I shouldn't be looking at, oh, well, I didn't make the other 10%, but I made the highest expected cap that I could. So I've hit my return. Actually, wonderful return.
Yeah, and you didn't lose money, which is the first rule of investing, right? Don't lose money.
And what's the second rule of investing?
Remember rule number one.
Rule number one. Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm wrapping my head around this a little bit here. Now, the tax and all that. So let's say I've got my IUL. Well, before I even ask that question, try to give me like a range here, right? Like, give me a. Let's just set some baselines. I bought in. I'm going to do an IUL. I'm 62, so maybe I would have done the whole life, but I'm going to do the IUL. Let's say I'm 40. Yeah, I like that better. I'm 40. I'm going to do the IUL. So, what would you suggest your average 40-year-old real estate investor? What type of policy is kind of like the middle of the road that everybody else would be looking at? Like what's that general starting baseline?
So a lot of financial advisors, I'm going to give you the dark and dirty about the financial industry, because I think that there is some stuff there that I just would like to have some more transparency around. So financial advisors started selling life insurance to increase their practice, to increase their revenues that they're bringing in, because they can only charge, to be competitive, they can only charge a little percentage of what they manage with of all your money. And so they started selling life insurance to supplement that income,
Okay.
which is fine. But when a lot of times when they're building out a plan for you, they some everyone tries to do something that's reasonable for you. But what are you really looking at as far as what this person needs? Does a young person, does a 40-year-old person, do they need a whole bunch of uh, index universal life insurance, like a more expensive policy, when they can still get term pretty cheap? So what I would say is I would meet with you. I'd build out a plan to get you the cheapest price, because you're not doing this for the life insurance alone. You're doing this for the cash value to earn the gains there. So we don't need you to spend more money than you do, or than you need to. So I would build you out the smallest, so you're paying the smallest premium and putting the most cash amount in, but without it becoming a modified endowment contract, which pretty much means now you got to pay taxes on it. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So we'd fit you in that range. And the good thing is that we can increase the amount of insurance. So you can increase as your money grows, the amount of your death benefit will grow, and you can avoid the modified endowment contract, but also while paying the least amount of money as you can. If you do need a lot of insurance, term is way cheaper. And if so, if it's insurance that you need, there's other things that are cheaper. But if we're using this for insurance plus all the other advantages it does, and the cash values and the loans, that's only one part of it. Some of the other things that are included with what the products we offer: disability insurance, long-term care, critical illness, all sorts of things that are thrown in, that you hopefully never need, but are there if you need them. So that's the type of plan that I would build out if someone was coming to me with me and specifically said, I'm looking to use this for real estate.
Okay, so thank you. That clarifies a vision in my head of how I see this. So I see this kind of like as a parallel ceiling and a baseline, right? I don't want to trip the wire of an MEC, a mech, right? That's
Mech. That's, yeah, in the industry it's a mech. So
yes. The industry term is a mech, which is your modified endowment contract, which gets triggered when you make too much money.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, is a mech also triggered by contributing too much?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so you have to work within those guidelines. I mean, when this was first written into the IRS code, what people would do is they'd buy a $12,000 life insurance policy and they throw $100,000 into the cash value, and the government was like, "No, this is not, you can't just use this to escape paying taxes. They're going to get their cut too." Um, but there's those. It's like you said. That was a great way of describing it. We don't want to pay more than we have to, and we can't pay too much, otherwise then we're going to start paying taxes on it. So finding that range in there that you're comfortable with. And the other thing is that depending on your situation, especially if you're doing real estate investing full time, if you've made enough payments, cash, if your cash value has reached a certain level for the year, then you don't have to make payments every month. It's set up in such a way that either the interest will cover the payment, or your prior cash value contributions will cover that payment.
So I just want to repeat what I just heard there. So we establish our baseline, we establish our ceiling, we play within those boundaries, and I've gotten this thing started, right? Let's say I wanted to do a $50,000 policy. So I have to pay X every month. Knowing that it's going to get 15% return, I guess after the pump is primed and I've reached a certain amount of skin or blood in the game that I've contributed, then I have the option to allow my dividend or return to actually make my payment for me.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the magic question. How many IULs can a real estate investor own?
I think they can only own. Well, no, they can own more because they can own them through other companies. Um,
Okay,
but
well, hold it. Now I have a deeper question, right? I, Brian Lucier, am going to open an IUL. I, Brian Lucier, also own a company. I can open an IUL on that company. I own another company. Can I open, for each entity, can I open an IUL? Can I open
so
an
that
IUL for my grandchild?
so you can open up an IUL for your grandchild. Yeah. I
Okay.
don't. I've been trying to figure out how you could do this with the business. Maybe somebody out there knows more about this, knows that you can. I am not sure that that is a possibility yet, but you can for sure open up one for you, for your spouse, um, and for your kids.
Okay, so
Anybody you have insurable interest, you can open it for your business partner too.
perfect. That's where I'm headed. All right. You've
Yeah.
anticipated where I'm going to try to go with this. Because as a product, say it's a $50,000 policy, and I'm not going to get into the weeds of what the death benefit would be on all that, because I'm looking at this as a bank account with a death benefit that I can use non-taxable if I stay within the MEC parameters there. And I've got 3 grandchildren and myself. So now I'm up to $200,000 worth of policy. And who's going to have the first right in line to borrow against an IUL?
You would.
The policy holder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say it's my granddaughter Chloe. I open up an IUL for Chloe. She, who, who are the players? What are the labels on their players? And who's the beneficiary? Who gets to borrow against it? All that stuff. Grandpa opens it up for Chloe. It's a $50,000 value. Who's who?
Okay. So that would depend how you set it up. For it to really work, you'd have to have an insurable interest in your granddaughter. So there has to be kind of some reason why you would need money if she were to die, if there was an adverse effect that happened to her. Um, and so with family, it's a lot easier to get those things. You can't like insure your neighbor or something like that unless there's some sort of reason for that. But then the death benefit has to be paid out. Well, it has to be for the benefit of that person. So if you were setting it up for your child, you'd probably want to set it up for the best interest of your child. So this might not be the best thing for you to benefit or take loads against. But there are lots of people that are, and this is something that I only know a little bit about, but they are setting up these type of policies for college because this is a funny loophole, but because the money is in a life insurance and that's covered under HIPAA laws, when you report to colleges about how much money that you have in investments, you don't have to report how much life insurance they have. And so that can help them get scholarships, get federal aid, that sort of thing. But going back to like real estate and your original question, I would be much more curious as to what is your reason for doing this? Why would you want to insure your child or just take out a bigger policy? because you could just take out a bigger policy and put more money into it. Does that make sense?
Okay, so let's go to the
Yeah.
max of that bigger policy. I still need to stay within those margins for the MAC. So if I've done well as a real estate investor, because I can, this is great. It's my own personal bank that I have a cash value in that I can borrow against. And when I pay it off, I'm paying myself my interest back into my account as well.
Yeah.
So that's one egg in the basket. If I'm going
And
to
then if I,
diversify, have several policies, right? If I can.
yeah. Yeah. And then on top of that, when you take the loan against your cash value, and in some cases, you can even take a loan against the death benefit, but we'll just stick with cash value for right now.
Sure.
Uh, let's say you have got $100,000 in there. You take a $90,000 loan. Well, you still earn interest on $100,000, not on the balance that you've taken out because it's a loan. So you're you're still earning a significant amount of interest, and you're earning, if you're good real estate investor, you're earning a good return in two places. You're putting the money to work twice rather than just once. And that was, I can't even tell you how long I've been skeptical about specifically IULs and whole life insurance. I've always been skeptical against it. When I saw that you could do that, I said, that makes sense. And that's a good reason to invest in it. I think, especially if you're doing it for real estate.
You can glean interest twice on $1.
Yep.
That's pretty huge. So I want to get a visual in my head here on $100 or $100 policy.
$100 policy.
But they're all $1,000 bills. So a $100,000 policy. Give me like a percentage wise, what would I have to put in before I could actually? My understanding is you can only borrow out of it what you put into it. So that's my understanding on a whole life. On an IUL, you just mentioned I could have a $100,000 policy and possibly borrow 90K off of it. So,
Yes.
so if I've got $100,000, which is, what is that, the death benefit? Or
Your death benefit, yes.
my death benefit is 100,000. Through my premiums and payments in, say I've paid in $30,000, is that kind of where this ends up?
Yeah, so that's how most people use it, and that's definitely the easiest way to use it. You build up your cash value, you borrow against your cash value. Now, some policies, the way they're written, and depending on a whole bunch of terms, so that's why I don't really love to talk about this, but it is possible. You can actually borrow against the total death benefit amount. So if your policy is $100,000, you have $30,000 saved in cash value into it,
Sure.
you can borrow against the $100,000. You're paying the premiums for $100,000 death benefit. You're
Okay.
paying those for the rest of your life anyway. So the way that the life insurance sees it is they say, hey, you're making these payments. As long as you keep making these payments, we're going to have to give you the $100,000. So if if you meet these certain criteria, and it's not super easy, we can give you that money before you die, and you can use that to invest it, and you can pay it back to us, and then they get their interest rate back on whatever they give you that loan for. So it's kind of a win-win for them.
So worst case scenario, I borrow the 90K and die. Then
They'll write you a check for 10K.
yeah, the beneficiary, well, not me,
Yeah.
but the beneficiary, um, would get whatever the remaining balance of that wasn't borrowed.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never heard the concept to actually be able to borrow against the full amount. We've always, in ours, we could only borrow against what we put into it, and that would not be the full amount anyways. I think they want to keep like a certain amount of premium into it to keep it active. So this sounds
Yeah.
like a better type of animal than the dividend paying whole life. But how long have IULs actually been around?
I couldn't give you the exact amount of time, but they've really gained in popularity the last few years. Once they were approved, because they can say you're guaranteed to not lose money in this investment. That really made them a lot more attractive to investors. And so, yeah, the last few couple of, but I think they've been around 20 or 30 years. They might have been around longer, but yeah, sorry, I can't give you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So I'm just going back through my notes here because you're. I feel like I'm getting a drink of water with a fire hose, and I'm kind of so.
Oh, good, good.
So
And I should say that a lot of these things have been built into insurance policies in the last few years. Whole life probably has most of these benefits, depending on the carrier and depending how it's set up. And so that's why when if you don't want to buy an insurance policy from me, that's fine. Go into your insurance person and make sure they know how to set this up the right way. Otherwise, you might come out of there and you might not be able to do any of this stuff.
hmm, interesting, interesting. Okay, so how does one determine the size of the policy they want to have? I mean, we've been kicking around $100,000 policy. I mean, is it, I mean, does it all come down to the monthly payment you're able to afford?
That's certainly a factor. There's a whole set of calculations. We usually go through your income and see what you can afford. See, it is a life insurance policy, so how much would you like your family to receive if something should happen to you? If you do need the other things that are included, like long-term care, disability insurance, that sort of things, what sort of time frame would you like to have those available to you for? Uh, so that would, if you've got a good life insurance person, they're going to go through all of that and they're going to make sure that they got the right answers for you there. Let's
So
see, did I answer that question all the way, or?
you did, and every answer you give me, I have five more questions behind it. So I'm enjoying the rabbit trail.
Oh, good, good.
So is there a rule of thumb? All right, say John Smith earns $1 million a year. What would be a target death benefit for him to take care of his family? 3 years, 5 years of income?
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, we usually look at between 3 to 5 years, but then we
Okay.
also consider your liabilities. Do you want to just pay off your house? Does your spouse work? All these things are factored in to doing that. And then, if you're really worried about your death benefit, we'll factor in some term insurance. Like I said before, that's a lot cheaper, that sort of thing.
So my focus as a real estate investor is I want to be able to use this as my own personal bank account that I know I'm going to get approved as soon as I ask for it and not worry about it. So here I am.
Exactly.
I'm John Smith. To all the John Smiths who are watching, we're going to use you. I'm going to come to you, Christian, say, I want to write up a $5 million policy. Let's say I make $500,000 a year. Kind of give me a ballpark of what I'm looking at, what's my monthly payment, how does all this work? If we've got those two variables, what are you able to figure out? I mean, I know there's a lot of other variables. Let's just make this a vanilla sundae, no Jimmy's, no sprinkles. And for all of you people who are not in New England, Jimmy's are the chocolate sprinkles. And then sprinkles are the rainbow sprinkles for the rest of the planet. So, okay, John Smith, $5 million policy, making $500,000 a year income. How do I get started?
um, we would, I I always like to shy away from like saying, "Oh, this is what your premium will be," that sort of thing, because health and your job, all sorts of your hobbies, All these sort of things kind of factor in. But if you want a $5 million policy, you're making $500,000 a year. That should be pretty doable. You'll probably be paying a couple $1,000s a month with your premium and then the cash value that you want on top of that, and that'll start going into it. If I could just like tweak your scenario a little bit. Let's say you're starting off with as a, a real estate investor. You've got your first home. It's starting to or your first property is starting to generate some income. If you don't need that income to run your personal household, I would say let's start throwing a bunch of that into this life insurance policy because, like you said, it's that bank account where it's going to earn returns. It's guaranteed not to lose value. Um, and also it's providing you all the other benefits of the life insurance. And then you're building that up so when it comes time to go after another property, you have a chunk saved for the down payment plus whatever you can get for your HELOC on the house that you've got. And then you can kind of roll from there. Yeah.
So, as a real estate investor, I'm looking for investment opportunities. This one has a whole lot of bells and whistles attached to it, other perks which are going to take care of my family. Like if I'm leaving behind an apartment building, my son, my daughter, whoever's going to get that may not want the apartment building. But if they're going to receive a check for a death benefit, they can invest that as they see fit, pay off their house, put their children in school, whatever it is. So based on our vanilla scenario, $5 million policy, John Smith does not have spelunking as a hobby. He's not jumping off of a cliff. He takes the stairs, not an elevator, whatever. He's just your conservative average Joe, doesn't have diabetes, not overweight, good physical health, stays 40 years old. So he's like in your median average Joe. Okay. If he is putting in 2K a month, he's contributing 24,000 a year for a $5 million policy. How does it work for Joe normal average John Smith? He's been doing this a year. He's been doing this 2 years. He's been doing this 5 years. At 5 years, he's put in 100 over, I'm loose on the numbers here. Let me just tap it. 120,000 over 5 years. He's put that money in. He's within his margins for the MEC and all that. He's ready to go. What can he borrow and what is he going to have to pay back for his returns? Let's say he wants to play this clean and probably within 5 years pay himself back to get back to normal, which as a real estate investor, I know that's not practical because I'm going to leverage every dollar I can, especially if I'm getting interest on it 2-3 times because I'm investing it into several things. But let's just keep a vanilla thing. 120K in, $5 million property. Now he's 45. What does it look like? He comes to you, says, Christian, I'd like to borrow against my policy.
So he can borrow against his policy using the life insurance company, but he also can go to a bank and borrow against his life insurance policy using his insurance policy as collateral for the bank. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I want to stay away from that because that loan is going to show up on his credit report where the IUL is not going to show up on his credit report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I shouldn't. Yeah. Yeah, because it's money that you put in.
Because if I'm going in to buy a $5 million property, they're going to look at all my credit report. And if I'm going to say we tried to borrow $1 million off of this policy. Does that sound reasonable? Like something that might happen, a $5 million policy?
It could be. I would have to. It would have to have been set up the right way. But yeah, it could be possible that it could be that could be done.
Okay, let's get even more conservative. Say it was a $500,000.
I mean, with the 120, depending if you had the right riders and everything set up, yeah, it definitely is a possibility to be done. Uh, you would just need to make sure at the beginning that you are setting this up to be able to do that in the future.
Okay, let's even tighten it down harder. We've got 120 in, $5 million policy, 5 years in. I'm 45, still in good health, still haven't taken up spelunking. And now I want to borrow a quarter of a million, 250 off that policy. I'm lowering the bar. Does it get easier to borrow?
Yeah,
Okay. So at
yeah.
lowering the bar to 250, that's going to allow me to purchase a $1.2 million property.
Yeah.
And the down payment that I'm borrowing from myself while I'm still alive is not showing up anywhere on my credit report.
Yeah.
Okay. So probably would be a good idea, if I know I'm going to use this strategy, to take that loan maybe 6 to 12 months before I'm going to use it, because when I do go to buy the $1.2 million property, the bank is going to want to see that this money has been seasoned in an account for 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just, us real estate folks, we're funny folks, right?
Oh, I know. I know.
Right. So what have I not thought about in this scenario?
I mean, I think you're grasping pretty much the capabilities and the limitations of this. You're dealing with a life insurance company. It's their goal is to make money. So they're going to do what makes them money. So you have to remember that that's part of it, but at the same time, you have $120,000, an example that you shared. That's a lot. That's a lot to leverage with, and that gives you some talking room uh with what you're dealing with. So, yeah, but a well thought out, well planned policy really has a lot of potential for use for you.
I'm running some numbers now I'm not getting, I'm just going to call it the 14% to make it clean. That
Sure.
14% is on the $5 million policy, or what I've,
The $120,000.
okay, that's where I am then. Okay, so times,
Yep.
so I'm making almost $17,000 a year off of that.
Which would pay for your policy and probably pay for whatever the loan is that you have too.
Okay, so let's fast forward back to where we were. I borrowed a quarter of a million out. So what does my monthly payment look like now? Because I'm not making the 1680 or the 17,000 anymore. That would be paying my premiums. Now I'm back to writing a monthly check. Just, you know, there's an expression, the value of the use of money or something like that. How much is it costing me per month to use this money, right?
Yeah. So the insurance company, they're going to charge you a loan. It's a loan, so they're going to charge you interest, and so that's going to depend on your policy, on the market, on interest rates, everything like that. I think right now they're looking at between 5 and 7%, is if I remember correctly. So you'll be paying that back, but depending on how much interest you're bringing in from your cash value, that may cover the loan payment completely.
And the 17,000 is based off of the $5 million death benefit,
The $120,000 cash value.
$120,000 cash value. Okay. But if I have borrowed a quarter of a million, 250, is it still looking at that 120 as what it's like? Do I deplete the 120 if I borrow?
Yeah, so it would be like you added on top of the 120. So you'd be taking out your 130, it'd still be, or your 120, and then you'd be borrowing another like 130 for a total of 250. That makes sense.
So in that scenario, not a dividend, but what does my annual interest
It
Where,
would be for the full 250 though, if I remember right.
so I'm going to borrow 250 and I'm now going to get interest on 250 even though it's a loan?
You'll be paying interest for the loan for the 250. Yeah.
Okay. So in this transaction, you're getting the money.
Well, the insurance company's getting the money,
The interest. The
but
interest.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
the interest. Yeah.
So, all right. So now if I leave it alone, the 120 is in there. That's my skin in the game, or my son says the blood in the game, to obtain the $5 million death benefit, which takes care of my family for 5 years if I shuffle off this mortal coil. Actually, 20 years, because in this scenario, I'm making $500,000 a year. So on the
Yeah.
250, 250,000. So that's 1750 divided by 12. So now I have a loan payment of 1,500.
Yep.
Okay. Well, as long as I work that into the numbers on the investment I'm going to purchase, I'm okay.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. This is. I mean, with all things, right? You want to go in sure making you've got all your numbers correct. But if you plan this out, that you're avoiding the credit check, you're avoiding all of that. You're more guaranteed for the loan. It has it has limitations for sure, but it has some pretty significant upsides.
I want to talk about the limitations in just a second there. So, disclaimer to all of the real estate investors who are watching this: do not take out $250,000 and buy a boat. Do not,
Yes,
do not buy a liability that costs you even more money. The only way I would touch this, if it were to be purchasing an asset which is going to give me a return which will pay me at least that 1,500, and then after that's off the table, does the deal make sense?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And like I said, like the only time that I saw like, oh hey, this makes a lot of sense is when you really combine it with real estate, because you've got two things that don't lose. I mean, real estate loses value occasionally, but it's fairly safe. And so is this thing. So you can leverage them against each other. I mean, just like you wouldn't take a HELOC to go throw into GameStop stock, like
Uh, that would be a hell no.
yes.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, I'm a real estate guy. I like bricks over clicks all day long. So that's me. I mean, there may be investors like I got a really great friend who's crushing it in Bitcoin. I think he's put in 150, he's up to 800K. Fine. I would
Good
take some
good
off.
for him.
Absolutely. And Rick, I'm talking about you. Um, absolutely. If I was wearing Rick's shoes, I would take some money off the table to cover what I had put into it, and then I can afford to let it ride. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast.
Well, and then just going off that a little bit, the every financial advisor is going to say diversify, 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 right?
Okay.
But how often do they tell you to get involved in real estate, to get involved in maybe owning a piece of a private company? Financial advisors, when they talk about diversification, they really only mean in the stock market where they make money. But if you're an actual investor, why wouldn't you have some real estate? Why wouldn't you be looking, if there's a business that you understand, why wouldn't you want to own part of that business?
Sure. Me as a real estate investor, for me, diversification is owning several properties. There, I'm diversified.
Yeah,
I got an address there. I got an address there. I got an address there. So,
yeah, several states, right?
well, actually, you may not know this. I don't know if I disclosed all this, but real estate has been kind to us. And for the past 3 years, I've been living on an island.
Oh, no way.
Oh, way.
Congratulations.
Thank you, real estate. Well, I changed a lot of toilets, back when I was working 80 hours a week, but now I have the privilege of gleaning information that now I just want to share it and give it back. So again, I want to thank you for being a part of all this because
Oh, my
you're
pleasure.
helping me. You're helping me add value to other people's lives, and this is actually a really great concept. My wife and I, we've used this in the past, and we've used it. I think we were buying smaller apartment buildings at that time, and I think we were able to leverage out $30,000 or $40,000, and never showed up on our credit report. This was our whole life product, and purchased a three-family unit, which at the time when we were buying those, I think it was clearing 35%. So it was a no-brainer because we were able to pay back the policy, earning interest twice on $1.
Yep.
Okay, so you said there might be, I think you called them some restrictions or some downsides. It's always good to put a spotlight on what possibly could happen because then you'd be prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's say you have a huge gain on a property and you're hoping that you can repay the loan. Well, you can only repay the loan and then put into that, put in the limit that you're allowed to put in. You just like you were just saying, you want to make sure that you've got enough to cover the payment, and then when you pay it back, that you've got a place for that money to go. Otherwise, you're going to be hit with the taxes. And so, just knowing, how much you can pay back, that sort of thing.
Okay, so let's get clever and let's get creative and let's think like entrepreneurs. I have a second granddaughter, or a son, or a wife. I'm going to do the same damn thing all over again. Now I'm 45, still not spelunking, still in good health, still making my W-2 or whatever my income source. Actually, my income source is going to change because I bought this $1.2 million property.
I should hope so.
Up, but now I get a second $5 million policy with a different benefactor. I can fund it. I'm the person who's funding it, so I can borrow against it. So this is like I'm buying a ghost that will pay $5 million if I die because I get to borrow the money.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. For your spouse, your spouse can has the same access, or you'd have the access to it that your spouse would. So since you're married, easy there. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with this. But yeah, my advice here, this is the only technical advice that I'm giving for this show, is if you're looking to do this, make sure you're finding an advisor that knows how to do this, that's asking the right questions about doing this, and that can get you set up in the right way so you fully can take advantage of it, and you're not paying too much. Because a lot of financial advisors, they don't understand the real estate world.
So, Christian, where could a real estate investor like me find such a financial advisor?
Well, I work for Ironhawk Financial. My partner Joe Lombardi, he's a huge player in this field. He and I are great people to talk to. So if you'd like to reach out to us at Ironhawk Financial, or reach out to me personally on LinkedIn, is a great place to get a hold of me, Christian Bond at LinkedIn, or send me an email, Christian at ironhawkfinancial.com. And you can get a hold of me there. I can give you all the information plus more
Yeah,
that you ever wanted.
we'll absolutely put all of that in the show notes so people can find you, find out more about you. Um, so this is the twist, and I'm just going to take a look at the questions here to see if there's anything I should have asked you. Um, okay, these I can ask you. Is there a book that you would recommend to an investor or to someone who wanted to learn more about this?
So yeah, so there's infinite baking, and there's I think it's called like the Financial Swiss Army Knife. Oh, the name's escaping right now. Those are two books that go into great detail about this topic. The infinite banking or is about whole life, and then the Financial Swiss Army Knife, if I'm remembering that name correctly. That is specifically about index universal life insurance. So it goes through all of these things, and these guys are the guys that write them. They're selling them, so they like to give you the best possible outcomes that there can be. Just know that there's always a few things that maybe are not as great as when they're selling it to you, but lots of great stuff there. Oh, you've got infinite baking.
Yeah, this is the book that got,
Becoming your own baker. Yeah.
and I don't know if this is the book that you're referring to.
Yes, that's the one I'm referring to.
Okay, so this is Nelson Nash.
Nelson Nash. Yeah.
And I had,
And then,
go ahead.
oh, and so Joe Lombardi, my partner in this firm, he's written 3 books about this. They're all available on Amazon and at his website. So and if you email us, we can get you them for free. Just ebooks or whatever. But those go through all of these same topics. But yeah, those few books there really go into great detail about how to use.
Yep, the infinite banking system, which is Nelson Nash. He was a charmer. He passed maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Him and his wife were very wonderful people. I actually have, when we first learned about this concept, it's like, okay, well, I started Googling it and all this, and Nelson's name came up as the author of this, and he was doing an event in Texas. So I said, Hanju, we're jumping on a plane, grab my boots, we're going to Texas. So I'll never forget it. And he had like a Southern drawl and very opinionated on our 13th president. I won't go there. But he would call my wife, Hanju. He had this really like drawl to him. And then we come from the Boston area.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we were crossing the Mason-Dixon line going down into Texas. And Nelson was flattered that he had people from up north come down to Texas to hear him speak. And we had some really great chicken fried with gravy, really great food, all that. But when he introduced us, he called us Yankees. You do not call people from Boston Yankees.
Oh man, I can only
Them's
because I'm in New York, so that's fine.
no, so you understand. So
Yeah.
from Boston and Red Sox and all that, them's is fighting words. Me, I don't care so much, but my wife is a huge sports fan, so he's like, no, you cannot call us Yankees. But Hunji, you coming from up north. So that was kind of,
Oh, that's amazing.
so yeah, definitely get those books in there. The Infinite Banking System, The Financial Swiss Army Knife. I think I've heard of that book before. It is not on my shelf. And then if we reach out to you by email and make the request, your partner Joe Lombardi has some free ebook gifts that they're more than free because they're going to teach you this system, which is worth way more than free.
Yeah, and I've read them. They're great. They run. I mean, the becoming your own bank and the financial Swiss Army knife. They're a little bit longer. These ones are short, succinct. You can get through them in a couple hours, or if that. They're great.
So I think we've covered what we've got here. So here's the curveball that was not on your questions. I always love this one because this is where it really, this is where I learn the most. And I'm just going to throw it out there. What question should I have asked you in this interview that I didn't?
Oh boy. Well, here's the question that you didn't ask that you should have. Is you ask your other people this, but what's your first deal that you got into?
Are you an owner?
I am not, but I'm working on my first deal right now.
All right.
It's an event. It's a event venue for destination weddings in Italy. So my in-laws, a bunch of them speak Italian. They're roots go back to Italy. They love going there, and we're like, why don't we look for property over there? There's some. I don't know if you've looked in Italy. There's great prices on property over there,
My goodness.
and so we're putting together. Uh, we're putting it together to do this over there, and we're looking at using a lot of the same strategies that we talked about here today. So,
Okay, so now you've really piqued my interest here. A destination event venue in Italy.
mhm.
What does that look like, and how do you figure out if this is a deal or not a deal?
So that's where we're all learning. And like I said, I'm not a real estate guy, so I'm still figuring all this stuff out. Uh, but we've reached out to a few properties. We're looking at between like 2 and 4 million is what we want to spend on it. But they have these old buildings that are 2 to 500 years old. They have beautiful painted ceilings, the archways, the incredible stone. I mean, Italians are incredible stonemasons. That's why New York looks so great in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Uh, just because so many Italians came here and built. But so you have all these places. We were reading online that destination weddings is one of the fastest growing, or is in a, I shouldn't say it's one of the fastest. It's in a great place to expand. It's a really popular sector of the market right now. And so we're just looking at, what can we provide, what's out there, but you can buy one of these old, palaces for a reasonable price, and then some of them are already up and running as event venues. So
So, have you already located a property?
we've located a few properties, yeah, that we like. We haven't picked one in particular yet. We're still talking to the realtors.
Okay, so I'm gonna let's play it. Um, what's you've already answered some of this. The questions typically are, what's the best deal you ever did? What type of property was it? How did you find it? How did you finance it? So the best deal you ever did, if the numbers work, will be a destination wedding event in Italy. Where in Italy?
So we are looking either in Tuscany or north of, well, Milan, Turin area. So
Wow.
there's some great properties southern Italy, but we want to stay close to train stations and airports and that sort of thing. So
Location, location, location. Or in my world, future location, future location, future location.
yeah.
So we know what type of deal it would be, what type of property is. Okay, so how did you when you threw
Oh,
the
how do we?
dart at the wall trying to pick real estate, right? Because there's wholesaling, there's self-storage, multifamily, industrial, blah, 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 blah. First time ever on the show, anybody brought up event destination wedding. How did your dart land there?
Well, um, so it'd be a family business with my wife's family. Th there's some money that people have saved up in retirement accounts and that sort of thing. So, we'll be pooling money, pooling efforts to do this. So that's where we're getting our funding. Our is from ourselves and from yeah. And then we were just we were just looking at businesses that we could do overseas that are fairly easy to get going. Event venue, if you have good marketing and you can kind of plug and play that into an existing business. My wife's a successful dating coach, so she is constantly meeting people and talking about people about relationships anyway. So this is an add-on service for her. So it just kind of was like a perfect storm. Plus, the members of her family that have lived in Italy and have learned the language. Uh, it's just kind of a perfect storm. So I don't even know how. I just fell into it. I'm just a numbers guy.
Isn't that funny how that happens sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Our story was very similar with the real estate. We were going to have a contractor build something on the house where we lived, and he came in, wanted me to write a check. And it's like, wait a minute, where's your permit? Where are the plans? Where's all this stuff? So, oh, you get that later. It says, as you will your check. And then he fielded me, told me I was number one, and left the property. And I looked at my wife and said, well, let's take this money. What do you think about buying a real estate property? And that was the beginning of it, right? And now
Yeah.
I'm looking at catamarans in my front yard. So the family business now, the family's going to help you run it. Are they in Italy?
No, we're all in America.
Okay.
So some of us will have to make the trip over there. But I don't know if you've been paying attention to this, but my wife and I both work remote, and then they have digital nomad visas that just opened up in the last year for Italy. So if you make a certain amount of money, and it's not that much, you can get this type of visa. You can move to Italy, work remotely there, and they're happy to have you because so much of their population has immigrated elsewhere. So Italy's in kind of an interesting place right now. I think that they're really trying to attract uh, immigrants that make money, that are capable. You know, they have those dollar homes. Have you seen those?
What is that?
They have homes. They have homes that they'll sell you for €1, and but you're required to live there for a certain number of years, and then you have to put, I think, between $12,000 and $20,000 of improvements into the property every year. So they'll sell it to you for cheap, but you got to put some money into it on the other end. But if you live there for a certain amount of time, then it's yours, and then you can sell it, you can rent it, you can do whatever you want. So
Huh.
Italy's really trying to get a motivated entrepreneur population moving over there. And I think that you'll probably see Italy be a pretty interesting place to that's booming in the next couple of years if this all works out for them. So at least we're hoping so.
So it's tested and true. Every time I ask the question I didn't ask, I get some really juicy stuff. Wow, that's wow. I'm still soaking all this in because there's so many variables. Now, you may or may not know this. What type of hurdles are you going to encounter running a business in another country?
That is what we're trying to get a handle on before we like throw a down payment down or something. Uh, because frankly we just don't know. We're not familiar with the taxes over there. We're not familiar with any of these things. So that's, we're working on learning as much of that as we can. So unfortunately, yeah, that's the only answer I've got for you
Okay, so
concerning that.
I'm thinking, how would I solve that problem, right? So if is I don't know, is Milan and Tuscany close to each other?
I think they're a few hours apart. I haven't been to either.
Perfect,
I've only been to
perfect.
Rome and Southern.
A few hours apart. That qualifies for me. So if I'm going to do this in Tuscany, I'm going to call these types of venues in Milan and ask the questions. I don't want to be your competitor, but I want to learn how to do this. Who's your team?
Yeah.
Who's your attorney? Do you have a business attorney? I mean, what type of accountant do you need, or what type of taxes, right? We'll send you a
Hmm.
bottle of wine. We'll send you a box of chocolate. We'll come visit your venue, right? Even better, right? Because now you
Yeah.
see them face to face, and that's so much more important. So, and then it becomes a business deduction because you're doing research and development. What a
Hmm.
great way to experience a wedding event destination and just enjoy it, right?
Exactly. That's exactly along the lines that we're thinking.
And if you want to do thorough research, you may need to visit 3 to 5 of these.
And we might have to go a few times. So
It may take a couple of years in the planning as well.
exactly. Yep. We think along the exact same lines.
And it's all purposeful. Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting, interesting. Wow, that was excellent. So, uh, think we've hit everything. So just to end this up, and again, thank you so much for your time. And I know
My
you've
pleasure.
already given me all this information, but I always want to have it at the end of the episode as well. What's the best way for our viewers to get in touch with you today to find out more about all this?
Add me on LinkedIn, Christian.Bonnick. And at LinkedIn, the company I work for is Ironhawk Financial. So look us up there, ironhawkfinancial.com, or send me an email, christian@ironhawkfinancial.com. Best ways to get a hold of me are those. And yeah, I'll be happy to answer. I love talking about this. I love getting people the right answers. So just shoot it over and I'll help you as much as I can.
Excellent. Christian, you actually brought an awful lot of really juicy stuff. I only have 4 pages of notes today, so that's pretty good. And then, the curveball of the Italian destination wedding event, that was like the cherry on the cake for this. So that was perfect.
Well, you'll have to come visit.
So I do have a wedding joke for you. Oh,
Great.
I just blew the joke.
Ah, we got to still tell it now.
Yeah, I have to tell it now. So, what is the one food that is guaranteed aphrodisiac?
Not sure.
Wedding cake, but it only works once.
Oh, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Be sure to learn how to say that in Italian at your venue event.
Oh, I will.
Christian, I want to thank you so much again. Christian Bond, Ironhawk Financial, thank you for coming on the show today and revealing and pulling back the curtains on this wonderful concept that real estate investors can use to enhance and multiply and grow their portfolio. Christian, any last words before we sign off?
No, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christian. And for all of my real estate peeps, this is Brian Lucier from the Why Not Real Estate Podcast, signing off from another show. We'll see you on the next one.